I called in for bike lane, like debris. So we have bike gutters is how we get around most of the places that aren't the legacy trail. And it's full of gravel, glass, wires, all kinds of terrible things. And in intersections also where the cars leave triangles of debris, where the right turn cars go and the straight cars go. In between is the bike lane. That's where all the stuff goes. I put it on 311. The next day they were out sweeping it up. I was delighted and couldn't have been more thrilled. Also put in for the button southbound on the Legacy Trail at Bay Street has been out since August. Before August, I put in something, it's just still open. There's never any feedback on the 311. I open it, they close it, whether it's fixed or not, or nothing. So if there's a resource for how to get more feedback on that, or what's the next step to push that to, because all we get are those RFPs and they're not great, but it's what we got and we'd really like to be able to use it. My wife commutes down that 3 times a week and is irritated every time she has to get eye contact with cars and what they stop. That's all I have.
Thank you. Absolutely.
I'd also recently found out that there were some issues on the Legacy Trail and some of the crossing of lights. So I went to our operations department to find, I think someone else had emailed our contact center and said, hey, the light it's not working. It hasn't been working for a while, right? And I guess the issue has been on those RFPs, the replacement parts, they discontinued them, right? So our department had to reorder like all the equipment. And apparently it's coming in soon. So we're going to have a resolution soon, but they did acknowledge that it had been out for a while. And the reason was because the parts fix them were no longer made. So they had to replace almost everything, right? So that's why, and I'm hoping it's going to be done soon.
It'd be great if in the I know maybe this isn't the 301 system, some feedback, that information in there would have been, okay, wait, yeah, waiting on parts, okay.
Yeah, I think the 311 has some limitations in terms of the communication between that program, and because it's just a repository for your issues, right? I think sometimes when I get them, I see who sent it, right? And if there's a number, sometimes people don't leave a number. That's the other issue. There's no contact there. Some people just put in the issue and then there's no way to contact them. You can't backtrack that. So in the future, if you or your wife may have done that, maybe nobody called you, so I apologize if that's the case, but always put in your contact information, 311, that way we can get back to you.
Okay. They did contact me on the street sweeper thing.
Okay.
Because it turned out I have to know what organization handles what road. Because it's an intersection of a state road and a county road. So the county handled theirs and they said, well, that other piece is a state road, you gotta talk to FDOT.
Yeah.
That's great, thanks. So how do I do that? And go figure that out. But they did at least give some feedback that way.
Our RFPs, last I think I experienced, it was 16 to 20 weeks before you could get them. So depending on which one you're ordering.
So then,
they're not like sitting in a warehouse to pick up.
right. And I don't know if we have statistics on it. My anecdotal evidence is RFPs are about a 50% solution. If they're so hard to get parts for, let's knock them out and put either raised level crosswalks, so the cars have a speed table to go across rather than the bikes dropping down into the road, or hawk signals, because those seem to have a 90-ish% compliance rate. But the RFPs are just ignored half the time. That's all I'll say about that. Thanks.
I'll respond to your raised speed tables. While they seem great to the public at large, they slow down response time for emergency vehicles. And for the city, we own our own solid waste vehicles and fire engines. And when they go over them and they're trying to get over them, especially fire engines or any fire truck at speed, bottom them out and you bottomed out a $500,000 vehicle and you've screwed up the chassis on it. So you're slowing down response time for emergency vehicles with those. So from the city perspective, we don't approve them at the city of Bradenton at all.
Okay.
I know Manatee County has some, but not a whole lot. Okay, anybody else from the public? Are folks from Cuban Board? Nothing? Okay. Moving on, we have the minutes from both April 18th and our August 15th meetings. And I am looking for some, did you have any comments? Have you reviewed the minutes? Are there any changes that you'd like to see? Okay, moving to approve the minutes for April 18th and August 25th. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, looks like we have an approval of the minutes. Thank you. Next, we have a presentation on the Manatee Countywide Railways Master Plan. Nina, would you like to introduce Gabe?
Mr. Gabe Gonzalez.
Thanks. Can I do a quick vote on my own? Is anybody opposed to me standing here as, versus anywhere else, say aye?
Hey.
Put that down for the record. So yes, my name is Gabe Gonzalez. I'm from Pellegrini and Associates, PGA. Recently, we've gone through a fairly long effort with Manatee County to draft a Trailways Master Plan. Today, hopefully while you're all digesting your delicious food, I can give you a brief update on where that's been and how that's come about. Here we are today, October 17th. Happy almost Halloween. In this presentation, I'll go through just some of the major points of what we did in this report. We'll start with what was really the foundational efforts of this report, which was going out to the public, engaging with stakeholders, talking with them, and helping us figure out what the key focuses needed to be for this entire effort. Then from that outreach, we developed a baseline of what was the existing conditions within the county. And once we could explore the baseline conditions, we developed a list of performance measures, some high-level evaluation criteria on which we could do our real technical analyses. Then we get our evaluation results, and then we put together some ideas on how the report and the recommendations and prioritized projects that come out of everything, how they can be implemented in the future, both from a funding perspective, from a design perspective, from a general quality of life perspective. And then at the end, we'll finish with a couple of questions if anybody has any. Public involvement. Everybody loves to do a public meeting every now and then. We actually did 2 of them. Both occurred in 2022. The first outreach meeting that we had was really just to introduce the project to the public. And then as a side note to that, we asked them to help us identify both difficult areas to access on bicycle or on foot, and easy areas to access, places they wanted to go. So the good areas, the bad areas. And then we looked at different ways to connect those green and red dots, as you can kind of see on this map if you can get close enough to the television. There were multiple input types. Not only were people allowed to stick little dots on a map and give us some open-ended response comments, we also allowed them to give us a very lengthy user survey. What kinds of modes of transportation did they use? How often did they use it? Stuff like that. We also happened to share that meeting with some other representatives from different agencies. We had some NPO staff that were there, and we asked them a lot more questions on the mobility plan. There was some discussion of the ongoing Sun Trail alignment study at the same time. And in our second public meeting, which was about half a year after that, we presented what came out of that first meeting, which was how we began drafting our evaluation network. And this evaluation network, to summarize what really the crux of this plan was a list of different prioritized trailways projects consisting of shared use paths, blueways, things of that nature, to get people on their bikes or on foot throughout the county. And at the second workshop, once we had that evaluation network able to be shared, we asked people more questions about things that were more related to the implementation. What kinds of patterns would they like to see in the trailways? What did they want to expect when they're out and about riding their bikes or walking around? Did they want paved trails? Did they want, what kind of aesthetics were they looking for? What kind of amenities were they looking for? So we gave them a long list of photos representing each of these options and had them weigh in on it. In addition to that, we gave them a list of our preliminary evaluation criteria and allowed them to weigh in on that. How important was equity to them? How important was access to opportunity? Things of that nature. And we'll get into more of that when I go through the final list of the performance measures. But essentially what this was the public and stakeholders coming together to weigh in on what was going to be the final product again. This meeting was held more closely as a joint meeting with the NPO to more specifically discuss the Sun Trail alignment. So that was also happening along State Road 64 over Manatee County. So that was about half and half of what that meeting consisted of. After those two meetings, we were able to finally come together and put together our baseline report. And this baseline report, as you can see here, we always love to build knowledge on the shoulder of giants, right? And boy, were we working with some heavy hitters. Plenty of background related plans that went into this final document. We made sure to do our research. We took information from ongoing and recently completed plan for Manatee County, DOT, the MPO, and then we put together our baseline map atlas, right? It's a list of several different series of maps representing the existing conditions from the Trailways network, what schools were around, what was the bicycle level of comfort looking like back in 2020 when that was calculated, where's the bus stops, things of that nature. And if you can see here, it may be a little tough to zoom in, but these slides will be available, I'm sure. This was our resultant evaluation network of the segments of trailways that would ultimately be prioritized at the end of this project. And as you can imagine, with all these different segments, we had to give them identifiers. So on this map, there are different labels here and there that just tell us what trail corresponded to what number in our final matrix. And to evaluate that network, here were our final performance measures. So these are lengthy, and this is stripped straight from our report document. I don't want to bore you all. I know we're all feeling real good from having our delicious food, so I don't want to go through each of these in too much detail. But for example, something like safety, we essentially just looked at the number of roadway intersections per mile. For a given trailway segment that you saw listed on that map before, how many times did it cross a major road? That value was then input into our evaluation matrix. Another example, the economic benefits of a particular project, how many commercial parcels were within a quarter mile of that proposed segment. So an easy enough buffer in GIS, count the number of parcels of a given land use type, that gets added in the score. Once we did all those evaluation and performance measure calculations, we were able to develop our final evaluation network prioritization results. And in this map, it's got the same number of segments as the previous map before, but this time, this map represents the high priority areas, the high target or high priority targets for trailways that this report is now recommending for focus in the future by the MPO, by the county, to help program future funds. And what we'll notice here is that in the denser urban areas of Manatee County, if you see a lot of red, the red were our high priority segments, the segments that ended up scoring the highest out of all of our performance measure and criteria calculations. And those highest scoring segments are listed here. So at number one, a regional trail starting at 3rd Avenue Southwest and Greenbridge, ending at Riverside Drive North, ending at the Greenbridge as well. This list is just the introductory list. Of course, it's much longer. It consists of every trail that you saw listed on those maps. These were just the tier 1 segments, the highest priority. And now to move the focus to what comes out of this project, after we prioritize these trailways, we can consider, okay, now that we know what trails deserve to be focused on, what items need to be considered before they can be implemented? Well, you need to consider what kind of trail is it going to be? Where is it going to go first? How are you going to classify? Is it regional? Is it local? That's going to help you decide on the context and the design elements that are going to go into the actual implementation of the trail. Consider the land use surrounding the corridor. Who do you expect to be using this trail? Is it mostly pedestrian, mostly bicyclists, or a mixture of the two? Once you've done that decision making, then you can go into selecting your official design criteria. How wide does it need to be? What type of pavement material should you have? What are the horizontal? What are the clearance widths and all that? And ultimately, we need to know who's going to maintain that trail. So of course, in the trail classifications, for our purposes, we split the trail classifications into a regional corridor, county connectors, or a local loop or a destination trail, something that people would just go to for a one-off trip versus regional connector. And each of these trailway segments fall somewhere along the sliding spectrum that is these trail classifications. Naturally, your regional connector is going to be something like your Sun Trail network. You want your wide facilities on there, faster travel. County connectors are going between major destinations, but not quite localized to like a neighborhood or something like that. And then your local destinations are going to be very centralized in residential areas or things of that nature. And just for context, what we did is we highlighted each of those classifications here on this map. So again, it's a little hard to see, but your longer connectors are generally going to be your regional ones, though we have some county connectors going into some more rural areas, right? Longer distance travel is still connecting major county destinations. And part of our report includes what we call the Trailways Pattern Book, something that allows users of the report to get a snapshot of what a trail might look like. Everybody might be familiar with the idea of a typical section. This Trailways Design Pattern Book essentially takes these broken down classifications of trails and ascribes a generalized idea of what that might look like. So typical design elements of a trail, something of vertical spacing, trees, where you're going to put your ditches, how far of the space does the trail need to be offset from major roadways. So in a rural context, it might look something like this. If you're a natural area, you might not see as many cars. That would kind of defeat the purpose. So you got maybe an equestrian trail aside next to that. Or in a mixture area, urban, suburban roadway, you've got more people using the trail. Maybe you're going to make the trail a bit wider, still offset from the road, of course, but maybe consider tree and vertical elements, lighting should be considered as well. Well, those are just some of the examples of things that are included in this report. And naturally, once we get to the point of finishing the design of the trail or even considering the design of the trail, when it ultimately gets put into place, somebody needs to be maintaining it and taking care of it and cutting grass and stuff like that. So again, this is another one of the slides where I don't want to read off everything one by one, but certain elements of the operations and maintenance to be considered were things that we included in this report. In order to make these trails be as successful as possible, you want to do things like maintaining your consistency in signage and trail markings to make sure that people feel welcome and that they're riding along some branded element. Makes them feel proud of being there. Installing vertical barriers as necessary, especially when you're considering mixed uses or cars being at risk of entering the trail, so you don't want to run the risk of people running into anything like that. Conducting your routine obstacle and trash removals. All of these things are elements of things that need to be considered when trails are finally implemented. The big ticket item, part of this report also determined high-level planning costs for the implementation of the entire prioritization network. And what we're looking at, about 140 miles total at a whopping 130 million. Now, again, this is super high level, right? That's a big number. It's pretty scary, lots of zeros at the end of it, but the investment horizon is over 20 years. And again, when we consider which of these trails are to be prioritized, it's the ones that score the highest, right? So naturally, when you're implementing these trails, the goal of this report is to provide the county with a resource to more effectively target what trails are going to provide the most benefit at the best targeted cost. In this report, to assist with that 130 million, we identified 22 potential opportunities for funding sources that are becoming available in the coming future. But this list ultimately needs to be updated and maintained by the county. That way it's functioning as a living document, right? Funding sources are going to change over time. Whether or not you're getting access to those funding sources, it's important to be able to have them identified. In addition to funding, to help trails get more promotion, get higher use, in tandem with the suggestion for operations and maintenance, ideas for partnership opportunities to promote the trail, get more people using it, or help educate people on where their local trails are. And in addition to that, ideas including trail branding, trail brochures, things of that nature. ways to generally encourage the trailway success via, just getting people to use it, helping with the maintenance, getting some additional efforts and volunteer efforts to help people maintain the trails, or to just generally monitor the use of the trails, implementing FDOT's tracking and counting software, help us keep track of where those trails are doing and how they're performing. That's it. That's the snapshot. Great, I did a great job. It seemed I explained everything super thoroughly. I'm super happy to hear that.
Where are you in your process? Is it complete? Like, are you done?
The report itself is done. It's currently undergoing, or it needs to go to, I just need to remind me again, it needs to go to the board for approval, which is anticipated in December.
Okay.
Once that happens, formal dissemination to the general public.
So how do the proposed routes relate to the Sun Trail?
They include Sun Trail proposed alignments in that they're on the prioritized list. And while being a Sun Trail alignment did not just skyrocket it up the list or not, that was one of the elements in the performance criteria is how much of a connection does it provide? And in that sense, Sun Trail alignments are also included in the prioritization. And as an example, it just so happens that one of the regional connections was related to the Sun Trail alignment and it happened to be in the tier 1 priorities.
Okay. And how buildable do these trails look? One of the rankings was buildability.
Oh, let's go back to that. Buildability. The percentage of proposed alignment located within lands that are publicly or quasi-publicly available. E.g. utilities, community improvement districts, drainage districts that are already owned by the county. So that was another calculation to do that ended up in the final priority number.
Okay, so this is only
It's a mixed bag.
whether or not it's publicly owned land.
Yeah,
You're considering cost of right of way.
That's correct. Right, that gets in there, right, because the idea is that you want to minimize the cost of right of way, so the buildability score does go up. And part of what we determined from the public stakeholder, and especially in that second meeting, was a tighter number of how to weight all of these performance criteria against each other. So those weightings, they're not listed here, but certainly part of the report.
On your safety, you did the considerations of, you're just strictly looking at the intersection crossings. How was that ranked versus accidents from reports or anything like that? That's why, to me, the safety, I wasn't sure how you were fully.
So the idea for the safety was primarily focused at exposure to pedestrians, not so much what is the existing background, because considering the number of crashes there is more of the different consideration, right, of what is the need of getting somebody away from that intersection. I remember having a conversation, if you know Peyton and I talked long about this, and we ended up focusing on what's the exposure level going to be. So how many times do people have to go and face the danger of crossing 4-lane?
And just because from the department standpoint and Greenfield and all our locals, everything, safety is important. But a lot of our data is always based on what's the crash rate, which intersection is dangerous, what we need to address. And that's why I'm just not sure how your safety works into your.
The MPO earlier this year had adopted the new Sun Trail alignment from the causeway to downtown Bradenton. And the maps that you showed were not reflective of that new alignment. Are you going to be changing the plan before it goes to the county commission for that adopted plan? Or are you, because it got moved down to 11th Avenue and 9th Avenue, and it's not on Manatee Avenue any longer?
I think I'd have to check in on that. I can't give you an answer. Right now, it wasn't the expectation to do so, but we can follow up on that.
Okay, because one of the things we had talked about at some point is the consistency between what the MPO was moving forward to greenways and trails and the DOT versus what was going to come out of the county plan. And just that, was it going to be consistent as it moved through that process?
Follow up on that.
Did you weight any of the criteria? Are they all equal?
They're weighted.
The way they don't.
They are weighted differently. I don't remember exactly what the weights are, but they are listed.
Once the plan is adopted by the county board, we send it over to us so we can integrate it into our active transportation plan update.
No more questions. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Greatly appreciate it. And I'll hand this back over to Tina.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gabe.
Next up is our FDOT report.
Not too much to give you right now. Last week, I attended the Florida Pedestrian Bicycle Safety Coalition, which was good, and Rich was there as well, and so we enjoyed that conversation, a lot of conversation about micromobility and how to define that in the legislature and how that impacts with enforcement. So we spent a lot of time on that. They're trying to put together some draft language for the department to put towards for legislation to help with that, because we're having a lot of difficulties and how to accommodate all of that on the various trails, roadways. What are we going to do? I know that various bike head communities, we always have that conversation. It's powered, how fast, what's going to go, can we share it, what can we do, things like that. So it's in the works. Hopefully we'll come up with a definition for micromobility that fits, and that's where the law enforcement, knowing what they do, and they can fill in on their reports, because that's how we can track what's happening. So it's working together on that and seeing what we can do to make everyone's life a little easier. And then another thing that was brought up was lack of reporting of bicycle accidents, injuries at hospitals, because it's not always with a police report. People may just get hurt and go on their own. We're not tracking that right now. The hospitals aren't reporting it. There's nowhere for that data to go, but there is a missing piece that we have. So we have to work with our local health agencies and figure out what we can do to capture that number. So that helps along with that. But that was a boiled down version of the 2 days that we had together, and it was a good conversation overall with the safety and just seeing what we can do. Let's see what else. And as you all know, the Central application cycle is open. And so I'm happy to help you as we get the applications in. I'm going to start reviewing them as they get submitted so that we can work on crunching any numbers or making any adjustments before it closes. So reach out to me if you have questions. And tomorrow night, we're having our Cortez Road Corridor Vision Plan Public Workshop over at the American Legion on 75th Street from 5:30 to 7:30. And it should be a good conversation. We have 5 tabletop exercises there for everyone to contribute to, so you can start laying out and putting markers and showing us what's important, because we have to remember this is truly a vision. We need everybody's input, because we've had various meetings with different groups and everyone keeps coming to us and saying, well, what does the department already have designed and planned? And it's hard for me to get across to everyone. We don't have a plan yet. That's why we're looking to everyone to give us that input. So it's important to hear that and see that. So just if you are in the area, would like to, please come on out and join us. And that's my quick report.
The micromobility stuff,
Yes.
that's very interesting, and I'm very curious to see where that goes.
Mhm.
Do you guys have a working stakeholder group or anything like that? I mean, I'd like to be involved and like know what's, how things are trending, because we have our own in the county.
Right.
Our own, we're looking at, we have to develop our own policies about where should micromobility be used, what facilities are best for them, et cetera, right? Like, you're looking at those type of things?
Yep.
Okay.
We are, and then, like I said, this is language that's going straight to legislation so that they can adopt it and put it in there so that law enforcement has a way to follow it.
Okay.
See, and that's why there's a working group that is on that topic, and they meet every few months
Okay.
to discuss it. And then I think
Is
the
there-
last two meetings, we've spent probably an hour or two each meeting
Okay.
discussing it.
Is it just an internal discussion? Like, are you guys inviting outside agencies to participate?
Well, right now, this is just with the coalition, but the coalition is a broad scope.
Okay,
It is not just local agencies. We have law enforcement there, we have hospital boards, we have communities, we've got everybody. So we're trying to hone it down and get everybody's voices heard.
okay.
So and it was an in-depth conversation that we had with.
I guess I'm wondering how I get involved, but we can talk about it.
Yeah, we will, and I'll let you know, and obviously if anything goes into legislation, we will all know. But I'll keep you updated.
I have a question. There's a public meeting tonight about the DeSoto Bridge rebuild. And we are considering bike ped facilities in that rebuild, correct? Or,
As far as I know, they are considering it, but I don't know at what point it is. It's a separate project, a separate group from mine. So I haven't been fully vetted in every detail of it,
okay,
but I would safely say that it's not a no, but they're just looking at really what we can fit into that space. Because the bridge is the bridge. That's what we keep running into, and that's where our corridor vision plan stops right at that project line, because we didn't want to overlap with what they're doing right now in the PD&G phase.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else have anything for DOT? Beyond then, from the MPO, next up is Robert from Benish to talk about the VCOM Village of the Arts planning study.
All right, thank you, Kim. So we're working on this study between the MPO and the city, and we just wanted to kind of go ahead and give you guys a really high-level overview of what we found so far, and kind of get some of your feedback on some of our initial kind of findings and, the direction that we think that we're gonna take the rest of this plan. So I'm gonna go a little bit into the project background, some of our existing conditions, kind of a, high-level photo tour of the area. A little bit about our public survey and walking audits that we have now completed. Our preliminary needs that we found, Chris will go into that a little bit, and then I'll say a little bit about next steps and some, just discussion, if you guys have any comments for us or want to go back to some old slides. So a little on the background. The LRTP in the economic chapter included these baseball, it was baseball, beaches, and education. So looking at economy and tourism, how can we invest in the economy via transportation? So part of that would be the 3 different baseball fields that are located within the 2-county area. This is our first plan of the 3 that the MPO will be doing. And so kind of going with that, we're looking at, generally, it's running from 9th Ave to the north, 26th Ave to this south, just east of Lecom Park to the east, generally 6th, but there's not really a north-south road on that side. And then Business 41, 14th Street on the west. So what we're really looking at is complete streets improvements. How can we enhance safety? How can we work with spring training games to make that a little bit easier, as well as art walks, Village of the Arts, what's going on in that area. So general goals, improving traffic flow and safety, especially improving safety, encouraging active transportation, making sure that folks are able to bike or walk and do that comfortably and safely. Supporting economic development by supporting Village of the Arts and the baseball field. This is supporting economic development for Bradenton and the region. And then fostering that regional connectivity. Folks from all over the region are going to these games. They're going to the Village of the Arts for art walks, that sort of thing. So really just kind of wrapping all those together via transportation. So we kicked off in spring of this year. So that was our project discovery, existing conditions review, starting to identify some of those deficiencies in the roadway network, looking at some of those preliminary solutions, really high level. And then we did our survey and our comment map that I'll tell you a little bit about, as well as some walking audits. Fall, winter, so where we're at now, we're looking at finalizing those existing deficiencies, looking at projects that can help, fix those. Prioritizing those, summarizing our public outreach and doing a virtual public workshop. Later, spring and summer, we'll have this wrapped up by the end of the fiscal year for the MPO. Looking at finalizing some of those solutions, doing our second virtual workshop, a draft report, and then adopting that report as well. So high level existing conditions. Really what I wanted to get across with this is that the right of way is really constrained on all of the major roads. On the top left, you have 17th Ave, that's right by Lecom Field. It's 12 to 14 foot travel lanes, 8-foot parking that the city recently improved or completed, improved, either way. So that one is actually probably the easier of the right of way. Top right, north-south, that's 9th Street West, that's also the one that runs along the field. That's two 12-foot lanes with a very small shoulder, 5-foot sidewalks, and a 14-foot center turn lane with transit access, so not a lot of space to play with there. Same deal, 9th Ave West, 10 to 11-foot travel lanes, at 11 to 12-foot center turn lane, 5-foot sidewalk. A lot of obstructions in those sidewalks, light poles, garbage cans, that sort of thing. And then Business 41, kind of our main corridor that we're identifying as far as safety concerns are going. But that's 4 9-foot lanes on a transit system. So that's a pretty narrow, pretty tight, not a lot to work with there, and along with those 5-foot travel lanes. Generally, the neighborhood, building typologies, you've got a mix of these, kind of classic Florida wood houses. You've got new mid-rise buildings coming in, older commercial buildings, a lot of auto-oriented uses, a lot of old commercial buildings fronting the street directly, so no buffer between that sidewalk and that building, and some industrial uses as well. As far as sidewalk conditions go, there are sidewalks, and the city is working on implementing some new sidewalks, but a lot of what is there is not really great. Definitely some drainage problems, some ADA issues, sidewalk clear widths are not the best. You can see there's a couple of different problematic stormwater inlets. As far as transit goes, there are benches at some of the stops, but really nowhere shady or comfortable to wait. And, not exactly consistent throughout the study area as well. Baseball on game days for spring training, they do shut down a lane of 9th, which is kind of a neat opportunity for this plan. But again, you have that same issue. The field is built right up against the sidewalk, so not a lot of opportunity there, a lot of kind of creative solutions. And then the parking is just kind of all over the place. There is defined parking offered by the, the field. And then there's also all of these different parking spaces all throughout the neighborhood, which are, getting people out of their cars, to their feet and getting to that baseball field. So looking at ways to kind of address that. And then of course, Village of the Arts, you've got, a lot of placemaking, a lot of kind of fun painted sidewalks and signs and murals and all of these great live work artist spaces, and we're trying to, with any of our proposed improvements, kind of take that and maybe take it to the next level and make sure that this stays a kind of arts neighborhood. Upcoming major projects, the city has got a lot going on. There's some drainage improvements happening in the Village of the Arts, some new sidewalks in the CRA that will get sidewalks pretty much throughout the study area on at least one side of all of the neighborhood streets. The city is working on expanding the baseball fields right now, on getting a more firmed up concept there. FDOT is working on a traffic calming project over on 9th Ave. And the Northwest Board is also doing some additional improvements. So really we're looking at everything that's already been funded or designed or at least planned, making sure that that's incorporated so that anything that we suggest is not kind of interrupting those improvements. Survey and walking audits, fairly predictable. We did 2 different walking audits. One we had Rich join us on, which was fantastic with general resident focus. And then we also did one with a lot of city staff, FBOT, transit. Really what we're finding is that people are kind of driving crazy. Sidewalks are not great, drainage is not great, lighting is really inconsistent, it's really difficult to get new lighting with FPL right now as well. And that there's really not a lot of places to cross the street safely. The survey kind of went and told us exactly what we experienced by walking the area. So we asked, what would your primary concerns be of driving, walking, biking? Driving, traffic congestion, endangered drivers for the top, as well as parking. A couple with concerns about, the behavior of people walking, crossing outside of crosswalks, walking in the road. There's not a lot of sidewalks, there's not a lot of crosswalks. Of course, we're gonna come up with that. And then high vehicle speeds, dangerous behavior, and bad lighting. Hiking and walking, very, very similar responses. The chief concern for both is dangerous drivers. For biking, the second top concern is available bike lanes, but then it wraps back over with walking for traffic and congestion, high vehicle speeds, night lighting, a complete sidewalk network, infrequent crossings. So really exactly what we would have expected to hear, which is usually good to hear that. And then we also asked, how do you travel to the study area today, and how would you like to in the future? Today, obviously, 82% of people said that they drive, but 39% said that they would like to in the future. So much higher rate of people in the future wanting to be able to walk, take transit, ride their bike to the study area or within the study area. So we know that there's a really big appetite for these improvements, which is always great to hear, to be able to get these implemented politically. But this is where I'll welcome Chris to kind of go through a little bit about our preliminary needs, crash analysis, and some level of comfort and such.
Great. A lot of the things that I'm gonna talk about are stuff that Robert mentioned as far as existing conditions and what we've heard from our outreach. What we're trying to do is start to, and what's listed in here is a final, but put things in a needs bucket and a wants bucket or a desires bucket. Trying to understand, okay, these are things that people, they're the things that we really want to see come out of this project, that these are kind of the things that would be nice to have, and we're kind of going through that process of, defining what these are from a needs standpoint. Needs, things like connectivity, talked about not just sidewalks, as that's part of it is a connection, but looking at the idea of our study area is just south of downtown Bradenton, but could you transition that field, that network, that grid, kind of the pattern, at least from a crossing standpoint, south within the study area, especially like on 9th and 14th, to create that cross connectivity over those major thoroughfares through the study area. Intersection improvements, I didn't hear accessibility as part of it. We're not doing a full ADA accessibility evaluation in here. It's more just as we see it and qualitative and noting some things. But there are some accessibility issues that could be addressed. Just there's some general intersection improvements. So those could be kind of operational improvements as well that we're going to start to dig in as we start to look at more specific solutions as part of the project. Bicycle, I explained with the word of amenities or facilities. There are no bike facilities within, or I should say no dedicated or formal bike facilities within the study area. But a desire and a need to see some kind of supportive amenities for bicyclists within the area, especially near some of the businesses, and how can that be included in there? Drainage, lighting, those were mentioned, as well as sidewalk connectivity. General amenities, looking at things like bus stops. There are bus stops, but some are of different age and kind of different branding. So kind of create, is there an opportunity to bring them all up to what's more recent. Other things like trash cans, benches, those are nice things to have and things that we like to see come out, and we're going to talk about as part of the study, but they might not be that first wave as we start to prioritize project moving forward. Kind of just some pictures of some of the stuff. So at some of the intersections, it's always hard to tell grades and slopes and stuff in pictures, but just some of the existing pedestrian ramps, the location of drainage within them, evidence of ponding near recent intersection improvements. So still a need to address drainage, examples of current crossings, and some of the amenities within the study here. So just things that we've kind of seen and now, as part of the existing conditions, we looked at a very high level crash analysis and started to dig into that a little bit more. As part of the needs assessment and looking at, okay, well, not just generally where our total crash is occurring, but what are some of the details and where are those, and how can that help to inform the next phases of our study when we're actually looking to develop solutions in there. So looking just some examples of so things like pedestrian and bicycle crashes, where are those occurrences kind of clusters. I realize I'm standing right here in front. Everyone was trying to look at that one. And kind of see a pattern that a lot of them, and not a surprise to us as we started looking at the project and looking into it, but a lot of them are kind of focused on 14th Street, so business 41. But pedal bike crashes, angled left turn crashes, really wanted to kind of look at that when I talk about the connectivity and new signalization. You've got a 4-lane undivided road. You know, where are people making these turns? Are they at current signalized intersections? Are they away from them? Are there opportunities to add? Could that be a reason to look at adding new signalized intersections where we're seeing some of these safety issues already occurring? And then when we talk about lighting, okay, well, where does the crash data tell us that we're seeing kind of more of our more prevalent nighttime crashes in there? We match that up where existing lighting is and see if there's opportunities for some improvement there, or to at least prioritize where we start some of those improvements within the city area. In addition to, well, it's easy to map kind of current bike facilities because there are none, but mapping sidewalks, mapping where planned improvements for sidewalks are within the area, but we also did a level of traffic stress analysis for the area. And I know the colors are probably hard to see on the screen, but green being the more comfortable roads, red, yellows, orange, and red being the more stressful roadways within the study area. I was surprised it's your bigger roads where we're seeing the higher stress. So how do we prioritize some of these and really trying to inform that solutions development, and then as we start to look at, well, how could you fund and prioritize some of these projects, give some information for that as well. So next steps, so some of the things, well, I'll go through on this thing, never changing up, so I don't forget, but really starting some stakeholder engagement, looking at potential of early December to reach back out. We had a stakeholder meeting early on in the project, getting that group back to through some of the more detail of the needs assessment, the survey results, really start to kick off into our solutions development, which is that complete streets catalog and solutions there. Looking to probably looking at January after the holidays and stuff for a virtual public workshop we'll be doing to present some of those ideas, some of those concepts. Trying to think, especially in the virtual space, how can we do something to where we're not just presenting ideas, but getting some feedback from people as well. And then once we kind of get that feedback, we go through, come up with our, what we're calling our solutions and our list of potential projects, going through that prioritization, some additional analysis. We've got some budget in our project to do that, to kind of, test and analyze some of those potential solutions to make sure they make sense from just a traffic and mobility standpoint as well, but going through some of that when we wrap this up. Any questions?
Do you have any proposed cross sections at this time?
This time, no.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'll say that, the potential for to throw out lane repurposing on 14 will most likely some scenario that will come out of the study. I mean, from a safety standpoint, I mean, it's trying to be like, that's the one where if you're looking at where Robert showed, the amount of right of way that we have. You have substandard lanes on 14 right now. So what are opportunities to do out there? I know the traffic is tricky out there and everything going on. We understand kind of the bigger picture of moving people around, but something we're coordinating as we get into that with District 1. At least the concept and the idea to maybe go with it.
Okay, just. Yep.
No, as far as other cross sections, no, a lot of it's going to become, as we got into it, neighborhood focused, some smaller intersection improvements here or there. I think personally, some of the bigger things, especially that night, there are some additional crossing opportunities, especially in the southern part of our study area. You're getting to like half-mile spacing between crossing opportunities for signalized intersections. So the opportunity to kind of increase that signal density, especially on 9th and between 17th and midpoint of our city area and north to downtown, making that feel more like it's starting to get that feel.
Okay, does this overlap or connect to any other trail network that was previously illustrated?
Was there
So,
one that kind of skirts the
yeah,
outside?
there, I'm not
Potentially.
familiar with the final alignment, but there is one to the north through downtown that would be nearby. And we're going to look at, once we've got that final alignment established, look at how we can connect that, probably through a bike boulevard network. Because unfortunately, there's not a lot of room to do anything really, a substantial like 12-foot trail. Yeah, and then maybe some potential along the railroad, but again, that's a tough right of way to work with right now as well.
And we showed a study area and there's some flexibility with that. I think I mentioned that there's a railroad that, it's just to the east of our study area, kind of angled, through there and there. We haven't started looking at it, but it's outside, so it's,
Connected rail.
yeah.
It goes
Yeah,
across the
yeah,
trail, so.
No,
So this area is offset from the trail network, is what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, as. or at
14th
least if we
Street
know
becomes
that.
part of the trail once you get to downtown. Your network is north from the Sun Trail perspective. No, but I don't know how it connects into the Manatee County network, what they've done.
Oh, okay, well, all right. Very good, thank you.
And if anybody needs any old drainage structures circa 1950, we've got them.
Yeah, from all, that's exactly what I want.
Like escape.
To comment that some of the methodology that they developed for this study, the idea was that there could be some level of replication for the other two baseball economic development areas as Smith Stadium and down in South Sarasota County. And, different areas, different types of, they don't have those 60, 800-year-old drainage structures yet in South Sarasota County.
And the 100-year-old houses. So
They don't have any drainage structures.
one of the biggest challenges that they face is that we have, when they say constrained right of way, there is nothing else. The buildings are right at the back of the sidewalk through a lot of this. We have places that we have 30-foot right of way, 25-foot right of ways through some of this, so it is extremely challenging. So it's not anything the city was going to be able to solve on their own. We've got infrastructure issues as well that we're going to need to prioritize along with the street level improvements that we're going to be doing.
Because I did end up, even like, especially when we get into the neighborhood streets, you're still seeing a lot of old granite curb that's in there. So it's not like it's even kind of more of a rural or an actual, just a concrete curb, like you're talking about pretty significant investment if you wanted to do something bigger there. And for the, some of those streets were originally brick streets, so you get into drainage, like brick, you design drainage much differently than you do today, it's a lot differently than 100 years ago. So those are big.
Found 3 of them this week.
Yeah.
Build it again.
Heard some horror stories of they opened up. Well, they're like, no, just cap it back and don't touch it. But I think it's really looking for opportunities of how to, there's a uniqueness to the area and to kind of highlight some of that and how to create this complementary relationship between the Village of the Arts and the events at the baseball stadium. And how can you get to where there's some interaction between the two, that they play nice together, or that it'd be easy to not realize all kind of the local gems that are just off the main roads within this area. So how can we highlight some of that and then make it convenient enough without completely disrupting that unique character of the neighborhoods for people to visit. some of those locations, so. It is a fun yet challenging project all at the same time. So
Is there a reason that you're only doing virtual workshops versus in person? Just because it's a small area? and
Yeah.
Just sometimes I'm not sure how you're gonna get everybody's input virtually, just asking.
yeah, and well, I mean, and it was part of doing so the second walking group was really kind of focused at trying to get, so we did two walking audits and one was more technical staff, so accounting staff, Ken and other city staff, FDOT representatives there. We did the second one, which was a little more geared towards trying to get people in there, but out to there. I don't know the history and the scoping of this. I
Sorry.
if I didn't break the scope and why it was a virtual one.
You mentioned the how during large events, during baseball games, there's a unique opportunity kind of just to see how it could function without a third lane. So could you just describe maybe the observations were, what is effectively a road diet
Yeah,
during the peak activity?
It's definitely an interesting one. It's not a very long segment. It really is just running between the Public Works building and I believe, what is that, 17? Just shuttle for a few blocks. From what we observed, I mean, there's a little bit of backup, but it's really not as substantial as you would expect it to be. As far as opportunities with that, something maybe not more formalized in the sense of a permanent road diet, but something that would be able to work during game day.
Lane repurposing.
Lane repurpose.
Americans do not like diets.
I know.
Nobody likes diets.
There's a new term every week. So that's definitely one thing that we would want to be able to have a better understanding of what's happening with the the baseball grand revamp. I don't know if y'all branded it yet. The city park, maybe.
No, not that I heard.
So we haven't had the opportunity to see a site plan for that, so we're not sure if that centralizes parking with a great big structure and it becomes a non-issue. As far as the need to shuttle folks between parking garages or not, or does it become part of a larger downtown circulator that connects you to the great big empty garages downtown on game day? So there's a lot of opportunities there, but right now we don't have anything especially in mind for it. But it certainly is a component of any kind of recommendation.
I'll add that even, and those observations, most of the games are during the day and have a tendency to get out before kind of that peak. So.
Did one during school drop or let out?
Yeah, there's an element for school there too. It makes.
I downplay it, so.
Yeah, I mean, we're not opposed to it. We just haven't kind of seen, that. We want to be aware that we do know that traffic backs up in the evening as people are trying to get over the bridge. It all converges right up there just north of our study area. So that's when I talk about doing some additional analysis. So if we come up in a lane repurposing on 9th or 14th is one of those, we're not going to go do a full on highly in-depth traffic study, but we have budget to start to look at some of those and just get a sense of how bad is it going to make things, and is it something that's worth digging in a little deeper for some of those.
The other unique thing about this area is the east and west boundaries, 9th Street and 14th Street have about equitable traffic on them, even though one is the 4-lane state road and the other one is a 3-lane, starts as a county, turns into the city, and then turns into a state road from 26th Avenue all the way up to the bridge. So it's, but the traffic volumes there are pretty consistent. So what you do to one is going to impact the other, no doubt, because people will go back and forth between them on a regular basis, depending on what's loaded up or has an accident or not. Any other questions?
Well, and we need to figure it out. There is still, our survey is closed. We do still have a wiki map. If you go to the NPO's website, that's open. Probably not going to be open for much longer. If you know the area and you want to add some comments into it, nothing that, and any other feedback or ideas that you guys have. Just appreciate it.
Okay. Next on the MPO update is the updated bicycle pedestrian TAC policy. Nina is going to talk with us about what the changes are.
Yeah. So this will be a very quick item, informational really only. At the last BPTAC meeting, we presented an updated policy that would go to the board in September. And there was some discussion about changing the quorum. And so before it went to the board, we changed the quorum so that instead of it being a fixed number of 10 members required per quorum, it will be 50% of active members plus one. So if there are any empty seats on the committee, those will not count, so it'll be 50% plus one. Ironically, also quorum today is at 10. So as long as we stay at a full committee, it should be around 10 or 11 people. So that change was made following your discussion. And then also there was also the suggestion to move next year's BPTAC meeting from August into September. And so we did make that change in the draft meeting calendar, and that will be adopted by the board later this year. So we were able to accommodate that change also. That's all I have on that item. Any questions?
Thank you all for the discussion on the quorum at the last meeting. It was a good discussion. Thank you.
Sure.
Then we've got the Sun Trail application cycle. That's up and open.
Sure. So it's just following up on what Tanya already announced. Central applications are open. We've already had some emails from several jurisdictions about applications. Just a reminder that eligible projects have to be on the MPO's list of project priorities. So you can get in touch with us to confirm. You're going to need to submit that list of project priorities along with the application. And one page out of the application is a signature from the MPO to certify that it is an eligible project. So get in touch with us if you know you're going to be applying, so we can get that signature page out to you. With that, the 2024 call for projects is open and will be open until early December 1st at 4 p.m. We are recommending that jurisdictions apply for the adopted Sun Trail alignments that were adopted by the board earlier this year. So currently they are on the list of project priorities, but we want to move those towards active projects. So please do plan to submit project applications for those. And did you want to add any more to Sun Trail planning?
No, that sounds good. Just keep in mind, and we had the Senate bill was added, the Florida greenways and adding that into it. So they've updated, I think, everything. We've finally gotten both the Sun Trail to match with the OGT alignments, but I know that for not pertaining to this county, but we'd have the Collier to Polk that we're putting towards in front of the council in December to get that added as a priority trail. So there are a few changes that might be coming, but if you think you're in the area, please provide a map, show what it is, and then as we go through the applications, we'll be able to finalize if it is or isn't within the network.
Sure.
Any questions?
Does anybody have anything else about the presentations or the information? If not, we'll do once around the table. We'll start with Patrick and
we are applying for a Sun Trail grant for a segment of the new network. That'll be from on 17th Street, Monterey up to Nathan Benderson Park, through Nathan Benderson Park to the Infernal Trail. So that's about a 1.5-mile section of trail that we're applying for. That 17th Street Park is being redeveloped, so it's going to be a regional park. So a lot of connections. So it's the connection between 17th and Nathan Benderson Park. So a lot of regional importance and all that. So we'll be doing that. We'll be applying for that segment to be a priority project, right? That's what you want us to do. Yeah, right, okay, land terminology, so we're doing that. Tried this update in the previous meeting, but our SS4A grant is ongoing. We're gonna hopefully put that out for solicitation soon, or we're gonna do some internal template stuff. We're working on that. Yeah, go from there, thanks.
Dan?
But I don't know, it's like,
Yes. Good for me.
No, thanks. Thank you. Mark? Dan?
I have one thing. We brought it up in the meeting with the Legacy Trail, North Fork connector. We didn't have a restroom there. And I just want to formally thank Sarasota County and Swift Mud for working together and putting a porta potty. And gotten a lot of feedback from people that have used that it's working really well. And I want to formally thank everybody for the collaboration and participation.
That's nice to hear.
Charles Hines with West Republic Land asked me to hand out this flyer to you all. As you may know, Trust Republic Land has partnered with Office of Greenways and Trails to develop a logo for the Florida Gulf Coast Trail. They have identified 5 candidate logos from many submissions. And so he's asked you all to provide your feedback and vote for your favorite logo. These will be posted all along the regional trail method from Nellis and Hillsborough all the way down to Collier.
I assume you can only vote once, right?
Hey, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate your time and your contributions. And if nobody else has anything, we're going to go ahead and adjourn. And our next meeting is February 20th. So let's have a safe holiday season. We will see you back here in February.
I'll see you next year.
Yeah.